What I fear most is that the standard of what you're expected to behave in public forum and what's okay to say and what's not okay to say to people has changed, and the respect for people of different races or different genders or different sexualities from you, it's now okay to say mean things or unkind words, and it's not okay.
My name is Jerry Danielson. I live in Santa Clarita, Canyon Country area. I am the vice president of the Democratic Alliance for Action, so I'm a Democrat. And we're here at the parade under the banner of Progressives United, which includes, we call ourselves the DAA, the Democratic Alliance for Action. We also have 2 or 3 of the congressional candidates here, and we have Win to Lead, and we have Swing Left, and we have CA 25 Up, and we have all these different groups. Most of these groups have come about since the last election. We're a charter Democratic club that has been out here for a long, long time.
A moderate Democrat.
Inclusive.
Progressive.
I'm extremely liberal. I'm a Democrat and very proud to be a Democrat. I believe in everything the other Democrats believe in.
I'm a pragmatic progressive.
Definitely progressive.
Very liberal.
Progressive, and a feminist. A very strong feminist.
A progressive and a feminist.
Same here.
I am a proud Democrat, and I am willing to work across the aisle because my parents are Republican, and I learned from an early age that understanding how to work with people who are different is key.
Flamingly liberal, hardcore Democrat.
I'm a moderate, and I am registered as a Democrat. Politically, I've always been engaged in the process, and I think there's value on both ends of the spectrum.
Well, I am a Democrat, and I would say that I'm a frustrated Democrat.
I don't complain about it as much as some, but everybody likes to win, and we didn't win. So then people like to point fingers and blame different people, and certainly changes of leadership can be good, but some of the core values I still believe in, like healthcare choices and education and environmental good things for the environment. So it's the core value thing that keeps me here.
I think we need to come together under certain ideals that we can come together and try to get something accomplished.
I echo Bernadette's thoughts, and I think that we also have to do a better job of stating what is important to us as Democrats.
I really feel that they need to be more forceful in their opinions. I don't feel that they're expressing a common theme that we need to reach out to, especially the disenfranchised voters that voted for 45. I don't feel like we're doing enough of that. I feel like there's a lot of division now. There's a certain population portion of that there's no getting to. But there's a whole other part of people that have buyer's remorse right now, and those are the people we need to reach out to, and we need to find out what their issues are and try and reach them on what they need and what's important to them.
I think there's a lot of work to be done, but if we stick together and we vote, we can bring it back.
You know, what we're really focused on is the local level and how excited and energized people are. And you're seeing that if you look around right here, the number of progressives who are standing together today to say, we're going to take back our community for ourselves. We'll let what's happening in Washington happen in Washington, but right here, people are really standing up and saying, we can't have these extremists representing us in Washington anymore. We need to make sure that we have people who are going to stand up for the best interests of our community and who are going to fight for those pragmatic progressive solutions that will strengthen our communities. And that's what's happening today.
The party itself, from the top down, I think needs help in terms of kind of getting things organized. I think there's a lot of energy out here. I think I've been trying to give to different causes that are not necessarily the GCCC and the DNC, all that sort of thing. I've given a little bit there, but I'm trying to do things involved with Swing Left. I know there's 25 Up, there's the DAA, there's all sorts of groups out here that kind of need someone to bring them together and to kind of figure out how to make it all one big project that's working together. So I know a lot of it's just you just got to do it from the ground up. I think that's great, but it's a lot of people who just don't know how to do that yet. So we need some leadership to help with that too.
It's exciting how many new people are getting involved in the party that were, attracted to the Bernie president campaign. And, people are fired up in the wake of Trump winning that I don't think we've ever really seen before. And hopefully it's an energy we'll be able to harness and, turn into some major victories in 2018.
You start. Wow. Go ahead.
I think I think what has occurred is an accumulation of a lot of passivity, division of the party, not enough participation, in the what, probably how long would you say? It needs a lot of work, and that's what we're here for. Especially the younger group, we need to get them more involved, more passionate, more. Going back to the 70s, I marched to lower the vote to 18 when I had friends being sent out to Vietnam. So there was a real cause for us to get involved, and I think we have a cause again. And if we can get the young people more involved, I think it'll make it less division. Unity is everything, and getting involved at the local level all the way to the top, to the White House.
Exactly. I figure that if you're young, get out here and vote. It's if we want a change, we need to vote.
The Democratic Party has done a lot of amazing things for our country, and I'm all for them.
I'm for the Democratic Party, and we've definitely done some amazing things this year and really made our voice heard.
I stand with them.
I think the Democratic Party has a great opportunity to tap into this tremendous amount of citizen activism that's emerged through local grassroots, community-oriented groups, and I hope to see that happen.
I think that the Democratic Party is going through a reawakening, and I think that we are making a lot of progress towards being the party of the future, not just the party of yesterday.
I think it has its challenges. I think a lot of people are very quick to say they don't have a message, and they need to figure out what message they want, but I don't think that's the problem. I think they've had a pretty solid message they're interested in helping people. But that's not enough to combat the more powerful message on the right. And the powerful message on the right is, one, they have a propaganda network. We can't call it a news network, but it's just propaganda, and that's the only place they get their information. And, it's full of, inaccuracies isn't even the right word, it's just lies. It's just lies. But then I think then they have the key word, which is abortion. And then it doesn't matter. People will vote against their own interest because they just have that one word. So on the Democrat side, I think we have three problems. Gerrymandering from the right, Citizens United from the right. The problem is on the left is that people don't vote. That's the number one problem. It's not, if you're not willing to go out and organize, if you're not willing to knock on doors, you don't want to donate, you can't donate, just vote. Do that one thing. If people who were disadvantaged actually voted in this country, there would be no Republican Party. And that's the thing we don't do, is they say, oh, my perfect candidate didn't get elected, so I'm just not going to vote. And it's not a black thing, it's not a white thing, it's not a Bernie thing, it's everybody. It's everybody, just not enough people vote.
The Democratic Party right now is going through a transition. All parties go through all transitions like this, and I think that's just part of the process. So I think right now, the Democratic Party is just trying to find its way forward and trying to figure out, what does that mean? How do we make a future where we all want to be part of that?
The Democrats, pardon the expression, have their heads up their ass. And I think that the world around us is evidence of that. And I think that we need to change our way of thinking and doing things. Taking the high road doesn't seem to matter anymore. The country has been reduced to a raw nature that I don't feel that the Democratic Party is paying attention to. And I think that we need people running for office who are real and not just spouting talking points. People want to hear about real issues. They don't want to hear what the president's doing at a local level. You know, they want to hear about their local issues.
I think Donald Trump is a terrible president, and I think he's actually dangerous in many ways. He may get us into a war that I would not approve, perhaps. And more importantly, the guy in charge of the EPA wants to remove those regulations. They want to take away women's rights to choose. They're deconstructing so many things that I believe in. National forests, allowing logging and oil drilling in national forests, that kind of thing, I think is a danger. I'm more worried about that than outside forces, except for the Russians, of course, swaying our elections, perhaps.
Our divisiveness, that we need to come together and try and get something accomplished that is good for all of us. Because there's lots of issues that need to be tackled, and I see in the media too many people trying to divide us more, trying to only highlight the things that are divisive and not do anything to bring us together.
I would agree. The divisiveness in this country, I think, is something that's making it very hard for us to accomplish anything, whether you're on the right or the left. I would also argue that the issue of inclusivity is really central to me. This is a country that was founded by immigrants. I'm an immigrant, and this country has has a richness to it because of the diversity of people who consider themselves to be Americans.
Income inequality and healthcare, which I think are two kind of intertwined issues. But I really feel income inequality, especially with the healthcare repeal going to the 1%, I feel that we need to address that drastically.
Well, right now we need health care.
There's so many things that are absolutely crucial, but it's got to be jobs in the economy. It's got to be making sure that we have a free and fair economy. We are way too skewed right now to not even the 1%, but the 0.1%. And it's time that our politicians, our elected representatives, start representing the people. Start representing the other 99.9% of us who need to have opportunities to get that job, to take care of our families, to have good schools, to get ahead. And that all starts with having that free and fair economy that isn't controlled by corporate interests, that isn't controlled by career politicians, but it's controlled by us, the people. And so I believe we need to come together for those smart, progressive solutions that are going to move our community forward, where we're looking out for, total and complete women's equality with women's health care, with anti-discrimination policies, and equal pay for equal work, where we are making sure that we are protecting our environment as we're combating climate change, that we are preserving and strengthening Social Security and Medicare, that we are coming up with comprehensive immigration reform, because we can't have 11 million people still living in the shadows and not able to fully participate in our economy, to make sure that we have good jobs and good opportunities for every student to get ahead in life.
A big one is trying to kind of get back on the same page. I was just talking to someone back here about how we're living in two different realities right now. I think that's a bigger issue than anything else. Just kind of getting back to the same facts, and then we can have, talk about our opinions on what everything it means to us in terms of what it is, but we're not even talking about the same basic facts anymore. So that's a pretty big deal.
There's so many, but personally, I'm a big environmentalist. I'd like to see just greening up, the entire power grid, and better waste management. I was just here. Cory Booker was just talking about how there's all these landfills and stuff that are near historic black communities, and poison the air, poison the water, and these very underreported stories that nobody really hears about. And I think that's something that I'd like to see people clean up more. I think people in America have the right to clean air and clean water.
Well, I guess for us, the big thing is the healthcare situation and unemployment and climate. Those are and because I'm a retired school teacher, public education, which is being is in a lot of trouble right now because of Betsy DeVos. All kids deserve a good education. We have a lot of work to do on it. When I was growing up in California, we were second in the nation. Now we're down at the bottom. We need to work on that, and I'm the first person to say it. But privatization and of schools and taking the money away from public schools and putting it in the hands of people who do not have an education background is not the answer.
Civil decency and civil literacy, honestly. I think that when we are kind and learn to love and respect one another and voice our opinions amicably and kindly, that we can make our points a lot better. And then I think when we educate ourselves about civic literacy of knowing how our government works and making our voice heard, I think that's critical.
I think equity is a huge problem or issue that we should be solving, and that everybody is equal and we should learn to accept that.
I think equal rights for everyone in the country is a very important issue right now.
I think the moneyed interests have much too much influence in the system. I think the people's voice is being drowned out by money, money, money. And so I would like to see a return to really people-oriented policies without the influence of big money.
If you get right down to it, it's jobs and making sure that we have enough security. And so I think that we can work on, jobs and making sure that people have jobs that pay a fair wage to reduce the income inequality gap by investing in the future. So like green tech is a great example where we can provide jobs for all different types of people with different skill sets and make progress on making the world a better place.
We have a man with dementia having the nuclear codes. I mean, we all laugh at him. Oh, he makes these stupid things. He can't speak coherently. If you look at interviews with Donald Trump from 2 decades ago, I mean, he might have been a jerk, but he was coherent and he was articulate. And now he's not. And people say, oh, it's what he is. No, he has dementia. And that is terrifying. And what is terrifying is that the Republicans in Congress are not doing their job and standing up to him. Can you imagine if any Democrat had done 1/100th of the kind of behavior that Trump does? So they're not interested in governing. They're not interested in the American policy. And they're interested in winning. And they're interested in having a puppet who will just sign on their dotted line and put in. He doesn't care about health care. He doesn't know what health care is. He, in Forbes, gave a description of health insurance, and he was describing life insurance. He doesn't even know the difference.
I work in cybersecurity, so for me, I think it's the future of how we're going to interact with machines. So how do we as a society live with technology? How does that innovation affect us and our jobs and our role within civic society and everything else in between? So I think the relationship between technology and society is the biggest issue I think we're facing.
The most important issue facing America today is clarity. I think that so many people are unaware that the news that they read is so biased and leaning towards where they lean, and all of it is just supporting that. And no one really is clear on what's really going on. And how do we reach that? I don't know. But I do know that one hand's yelling at the other hand, and in between, nothing is happening. It's just a bunch of rumble. And what's really happening, I don't think we as a nation are really paying attention. We're just caught up in what we've created in our media world.
Tax reform is always needed, I think. There can always be better tax codes. Flat tax is a good idea. There are definitely loopholes in taxes that people can take advantage of, especially people with a lot of money can pay less percentage than people with less money. And as time has gone on, corporations actually used to pay 35% of all taxes paid in the United States. Now they pay like 10%. So the burden is on the middle class, which I think is a little bit lopsided. It needs to be spread out more evenly.
Tax reform is needed. I think that's an issue for people on both sides of the aisle. That's an area that maybe we could work to find some commonality. I think that while I agree that there are social services like healthcare that I think are really important, I think it's also, as a moderate, important to pay for those things. So I also think that it is fundamentally unjust for people who are wealthy to pay a smaller percentage of their overall income in tax than people who are middle class. So I think that's an issue that should be tackled as well.
Yes, I think there needs to be tax reform. In fact, I just saw Warren Buffett being interviewed recently, and he was talking about how with the new healthcare law that they're trying to push through, that he would be like tens of thousands, if not $1 million. I mean, there were some friends of his that were going to be getting back like millions of dollars because of the fact that they're not going to be taxing the rich to help pay for the people that can't afford health care. And also all the people that they're talking about that are going to be 60 years old that are going to be paying like half of their income for health care. That it shouldn't be allowed in our country. That is not allowed in most of the developed world does not do that.
I don't really know enough about that issue. As far as tax reform for the wealthy, I do feel like they should pay more of their fair share. If they're making a lot of money, especially the 1% of 1%, they should take care of the people that need to be taken care of if they've been that fortunate to be that wealthy.
I think tax reform is needed, but not to make the wealthier wealthier. I think we need a middle class tax break, and I think we need to have a better tax break for the lower income people. They're going to need a lot of help if some of these programs are cut. I'm concerned about the cuts for people that need it. The working poor, I'm very concerned about them.
Well, we absolutely need tax reform in that far, far too much of a burden is falling onto the backs of working families, because there are so many loopholes, there are so many breaks that the richest and wealthiest people get. I mean, you hear Warren Buffett talk about it all the time. When he's paying a lower tax rate than his secretary, something is wrong with our system. So we need to have a free and fair tax system that doesn't punish working people, that gets working people to be able to work their jobs and be able to provide for their families, and not just give those special breaks to the wealthiest out there.
Personally, I don't. I'm actually, it's one of those things where you talk to people, you can have discussions about, what's a good level of taxation, but it's also about like what, as a civilization, as a society, when we're not little tribes anymore, we're a huge country and a huge world. You have to kind of think of what's your basic philosophy of how we're dealing with each other as people. So for me personally, I'm okay with the fact that I pay some fair amount of tax that gets used to help other people. I think there's a lot of places where we can improve how the money is used, being smarter about it. But in terms of tax, it's not one way or the other. I don't want to give 80% of my income to tax. I also don't think we want no tax. So I think depends what you mean by tax reform in terms of how it's used. I think there's things to improve there, but that's kind of where I am there.
I mean, I would like to see a more progressive tax system. So I would like to if it was up to me, I would totally eliminate sales tax, but increase property taxes and capital gains, that kind of thing. But I really don't think it's that pressing an issue.
I think at the top, there's too many loopholes for the people at the top 1%. And I think particularly not just a lower economic population, but the middle class is getting hard because of it. I think CEOs have too much control in this country, especially such as the pharmaceutical companies, the oil companies. We need to take that back. I don't know how you go about doing that. It's not an easy process, but it needs to be done because the middle class and the lower economic population is really suffering right now. And it's something that we've been trying to address for a long time as a party. That there should not be one child that goes to bed in this country hungry. There's no excuse, especially California being the 6th largest economy in the world. There's no excuse that there isn't something there that every child should be able to go to bed, and feel safe in their home, which they don't feel right now, a lot of them.
I'm not well versed in the tax code. I did have a discussion with my mom the other day about the recent California gas tax and how she was complaining that Santa Clarita wouldn't get much out of it. And I pointed out that as a Californian, I'm quite happy to invest in my entire state because I do leave the valley and I do travel on other roads in my state. So tax reform in terms of brackets and rates, someone more well-versed with policies can speak to that more effectively than I can. But even in his farewell address, George Washington said, yeah, taxes are a burden, and we have to pay them to make the place run. And I think over the last 30 years, tax has become a nasty word, and it's not. It's not. Taxes are investments in our community and its infrastructure and its services, and I think we need to redefine what taxes do for us other than burden us.
I think it's very important, like she said, to keep in mind that they do help our entire country and to have less of the take from the poor and give to the rich like we're having right now.
I agree with Violet, and yeah.
I think simplifying the tax code would be a great idea. I think it's too complicated for most people to fully understand, and right now, as written, it unfairly benefits the people at the top.
Yes, I believe that we definitely need tax reform because right now the middle class is unfairly burdened with the majority of the tax burden that's out there. And I think that we can readjust and make sure that taxes are applied more fairly.
The highest income earners don't pay enough. And I mean, you can't blame them. I mean, when you are in power and when you have a lot of money, you spend that money to stay in power. But eventually the French Revolution happened for a reason, and, income inequality is it. It'll happen with us eventually.
Tax reform in the sense of simplification, I think it's been building and building. Every couple of years it gets revised, and I think it's about time for a revision of some sort, but certainly a simplification would be well understood and well welcome.
I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about tax reform. I mean, I'm not that well informed on it, but I do know that I can remember researching and studying a lot about what it was like before we had the gold standard. And back then, boy, we paid a lot of taxes, and the country wasn't doing that bad. And now we pay a lot less taxes. And people keep yelling about taxes, and I think that it's more important what we do with the taxes that we bring in than it is about actually being taxed.
Single payer seems the best way to go. If anybody would listen to me, I would start with Obamacare and repair it. Instead of repeal and replace, there are good things about it. There are things that aren't so good. Repair it and just move forward. That was a first step. That's what they always said, rather than repeal it. Going back to if you have a pre-existing condition and you can't get health care, that's terrible, of course. And the poor, it's really expensive to be poor. If you're poor, health care is a greater percentage of your income. So having that be more balanced, and health care for profit is terrible. Many countries don't have health care for profit. We do. That's why prescription drugs are so expensive. So there's always a need for health care reform.
We're a rich country, and we should be taking care of our citizens, especially healthcare should be a mandatory, that everyone has health care in our country.
I concur, and the fact that if you are a pregnant woman in this country, you're much more likely to die during your pregnancy than women in Canada or women in Europe. I think that's sort of an atrocity. I think also the fact that in this country, only 1/3 of our healthcare system is devoted to primary care and preventative care, and that is the reverse of most other industrialized nations that have healthcare, where 2/3 of their healthcare monies go into preventative care, and that's one of the reasons why we spend so much on healthcare, because we don't prevent illness, we treat it once it occurs.
I don't feel repealing Obamacare is the answer. I feel fixing it is the answer. But I feel healthcare is not a product. I feel like it's a right that everybody's entitled to go to a doctor. They should be able to take their kids to see a doctor. They shouldn't have to decide between paying their rent and buying their medicine.
If they do away with ACA, and right now they're saying that they're going to repeal it and work on something else later. Where's that going to leave these people that have no insurance or no health care? They're going to cut Medicaid? what's going to happen?
It's 2017, and we are in the wealthiest country the world has ever seen. And with that being the case, it is truly mind-boggling to me that we are moving backwards, that our elected officials are trying to take health care away from 23 million people. That's crazy. In this country, in this day of age, health care is a right and not a privilege, and we need to make absolutely certain that every person has access to the care they need to take care of themselves and their families for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think health care reform is needed. I think I'm obviously thinking about it a lot the past year. I think we need to move towards stop thinking about it as health insurance. Personally, it's health care. So you look at other countries in the world that it's just a given that you have health care. It's not, something that you gamble with and have health insurance. So I know there's a lot of health insurance companies that are vested in it, and in fairness to them, there's people involved, there's people employed. So it's not get rid of the health insurance immediately. That's have a lot of effects. But I think we need to move towards a country where that's just something that we have and we can start taking for granted and just take care of everyone in terms of their health. And everyone's going to need it at some point. It's not like a car insurance where you might get in an accident. At some point you're going to need your health taken care of, and that's just something that needs to happen over long term in the country.
I think there are state governments all around the country that are actively working to undermine the Obamacare exchanges. And so I think that's a pretty pressing need. It'll be interesting to see if the Republicans can pass a bill or not, but hopefully they won't. And hopefully Democrats can take over more state governments. We can increase Medicaid spending and improve the healthiness of the exchanges that were created by the ACA.
Obama got off to a good start. He tried to pass a few other similar bills, but of course Congress wouldn't work with him. He was the first one to say it needs a lot of work. I know my one daughter, they're paying more now, but then I know that my boyfriend's daughter is being able to afford it for the first time. It's got its bugs, just like FDR when he started the Social Security back in the 30s. They fought that too. They thought we were going to go down with that we would never be able to afford it. And it still has its problems, but it keeps older people from having to be in soup lines or have to move in with relatives. And the same thing with health care. I feel like if we have a right to education, how can we say we don't have a right to health care? No one should die or lose their house because they have an illness in the family. Not in America. And it doesn't happen in other advanced countries like England and France. And they're not perfect either. I have English relatives who complain all the time. I said, but you have health care and you don't lose your house if you get sick. Yeah, you have to wait for operations that are not, life-threatening, but it's there for you, for everybody in the country, and it should be in this country too.
Healthcare reform is absolutely needed. I think that we did an amazing job passing the Affordable Care Act. I think there are a lot of things about it that are really great and are working for millions of people in our country. For instance, over 2 million children that didn't have health care without it. Does it have problems? Yes, but I think that it's a really good start, and definitely we need reform.
I think not everything is perfect, but starting out somewhere and being able to grow upon it is definitely helpful for everyone. And giving up just a tiny bit of yourself to help others can make a huge impact.
I do think that improvement is always a good thing, but I think we should make sure that we're moving forward, not backwards.
I think when the Republicans removed the word affordable, that kind of set their priorities. I think affordable is the key. I don't think better, their definition of better is certainly not my definition of better. I think removing the word affordable was a huge mistake.
I believe that we desperately need healthcare reform. We should not, at this point in our nation's history, have anybody be uninsured. We should have affordable coverage for everyone, and free coverage for everyone would actually be ideal.
Well, it certainly could be better. I mean, Obamacare was a huge step in the right direction. It was not perfect by any means. And yeah, I think there should be some form of a government option, Medicaid for all, Medicare for all. We don't have to do, people hear single payer and they think, oh, we're going to be exactly like Canada or England or something else. We don't have to be exactly like somebody else, but we can have a version that's better of what we have now. But repealing doesn't make it better for anyone. It's just a tax cut for the rich. It's not about health care. It's not a health care thing. It's just tax.
Well, I hope we can keep the healthcare that we have. I think it's important. I think it's working for me at least, and I see it working for a lot of other people that I speak to. Can it be improved? Sure. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I want to keep what we have.
After living in Europe and being able to utilize free healthcare, I would say that, yeah, of course we need healthcare reform. I mean, it's ridiculous. Here's an example. My husband and I were in between our insurances, and we had applied for Covered California, but it hadn't kicked in yet. And I have a migraine medicine I take. Now, with our insurance, it was $5. Without insurance, it was $980. So do we need healthcare reform? I think when we say healthcare reform, I think what you really need to look at is pharmacies, pharmaceuticals. Those are the things that drive, I mean, and we see it all the time. There's a reason why it's in movies and film and TV and all those things of the corruption, because money talks. And do we need healthcare reform? Yeah. Do they want us to have it? No. They make too much money.
I feel like the economy is getting better than it was in 2007 and 8. 2008 particularly, of course, we all know was terrible. And I think we were losing 700,000 jobs a year or something when Obama took office. And much to his credit and some other people, they did manage to turn that around, not as fast as it could have been, but it took a while to get there in the first place. So I feel like the economy is getting better and better. I don't have 100% confidence that it will continue getting better and better. As things are being deregulated, then greed can run rampant, and then the bubbles can come back and things can explode. So I don't know what to expect.
We've had a faster recovery and a better recovery than most of the industrialized world from the recession. I think that there's a lot more that we can do. I'm also, as a teacher, very concerned about what jobs in the future look like. I realize that literacy skills are essential, and I think 60% of the new jobs that we're expecting in this country. So I think we need to look at the way that we train people, the way that we educate people, and the way that we look at sort of entry-level jobs, because the kinds of entry-level jobs that pay a decent living wage aren't the same kinds of entry-level jobs that people did a generation or two ago, and we need to address that and then provide the training necessary for young people to be able to make a living wage.
Okay. Since 2008, I think the economy has improved a lot, but it hasn't helped as much the middle class as it should have, because I feel that having worked for a big corporation for many years, for almost 25 years previous to being a teacher, that I saw them always giving the higher ups these big payments, these big bonuses, and not letting it trickle down, and being told, in fact, oh, we can't afford to give you a bonus. We can't afford to give you a raise. Not even any raise. I mean, there was a period of at least 5 years, I can remember, at least 5 years, where we didn't get any raise, while the bigwigs were getting their bonuses and they were getting pay increases. And they kept saying, well, you know, they do all the work. No, we did all the work. And that needs to change. That needs to change in our country.
I feel like there's a lot of people hurting out there. It's doing well for some and not well for others. And the people that aren't doing well are the people at the bottom. In the middle class is getting decimated. They don't qualify for many of the benefits that the poor do, and they have the same issues, but they don't have the resources.
I think the economy is just barely okay right now. There's cracks in it. You can see it. You can see some of the larger companies with tremendous layoffs. So where are these people going to go? And what do I see in the future? I see another recession if things continue to go this way.
President Obama did a lot of good things, and the economy has certainly rebounded since where we were in 2008. But unfortunately, you see these policies that are taking place in Washington. I mean, the House of Representatives, Steve Knight, he just voted to roll back Dodd-Frank. These are the protections that we put in place in order to make sure we didn't have another financial collapse again. You know, I spent my career as an attorney dealing with residential mortgage-backed securities cases, seeing the financial and housing collapse firsthand, and seeing the policies in place that led to this just economic cratering. And we need to make sure that those safeguards are in place so that can't happen in the future. We also need to have serious infrastructure investment. If we come together, if we have that infrastructure investment, that's going to stimulate the economy, it's going to bring good jobs to our community, and it's going to help improve this local economy right here. But that's not happening in Washington right now.
I don't know enough myself personally. I'm doing personally okay. I know I can read about it. I think the country is doing all right, but I know there's a lot of people being left behind. There again, we have 2 different tiers, actually 3 or 4 different tiers of how people are doing in the country. So I think a lot of the political stuff that's going on and how people feel is of course tied up with their economic, how they're doing, economically. And so I think it's the usual, you have to kind of lift people up, get people jobs. I think there's a lot of the talk about bringing jobs back. I think it's also all the automation and that kind of stuff, the technology. I think we've got to be smarter about bringing everyone into the kind of the new century, new millennium. And I think the economy's got to be smarter about the country, and how the economy is run has to be smarter about bringing people into the technologies and the industries that are going to be moving there. Yeah.
Well, for some people, the economy's never been better. If you've got a tech job on the West Coast, you're killing it. But if you don't have that skill set, you could really be struggling. And I think really going to see. I think Nevada is a really good potential model where they have really strong service unions in Nevada. So like these. Working in the service industry could be a middle-class job, and hopefully we can see more of that around the country moving forward. These like romanticized manufacturing jobs that like Trump's always talking about, they're not coming back. And the reason why those are all considered good jobs in the first place is because of unions and government regulations. And hopefully we'll see more organized labor in different industries.
Because of Obama, he brought us out of a slump. I give him full credit for that. And I think they said that unemployment numbers are down compared to years ago. But I worry now. I worry greatly about everything from, they threaten that because we're raising the minimum wage now, that we're going to lose jobs. I don't know. We'll have to see what the future does as far as that. But again, people should be able to, I'm not saying make a living off of minimum wage, but you should be able to take care of the necessities. I think we need to worry, we need to move away from things like coal and all that. It's a thing that I feel bad for the people who are involved in it, but they die young because of black lung disease. And there are companies that are retraining them to do other jobs. We need to do more of that. We can't just pull the rug out from under people. We need to have alternatives for them. Getting involved in clean air energy projects are going across the country. It's at an all-time high. It's something that we can retrain people from the jobs they had so that they will have a job at the end of the day, and phase out coal mining and bring in more clean energy and have them involved. There's ways. There's no easy solution, but it doesn't mean we don't work on it.
I think the economy is in a huge transition, and I think looking backwards to laying our foundation on manufacturing jobs or old energy that people aren't using as much anymore is a mistake. I think the growing pains of a transitioning economy, our country has gone through this before in many different historical time periods, and it hurts. It hurts a lot of people, but there's so much opportunity for innovation and new types of jobs that require new types of skills, and to look backwards is to miss a huge opportunity and just hand that opportunity over to another country who will gladly take the lead from us. So I think forward-looking thinkers on the economy are essential. We need to stop looking backwards.
I think that it's important for us to remember that the jobs that help support our country aren't just the ones that at the top or make the most money, but the workforce and the blue-collar positions.
I think that like my sister Violet said, everybody has a position in America and we all help for the greater good, and everybody needs to keep thinking that and needs to stay motivated, but also needs to be respected while they do it.
I am grateful for the previous 8 years and the fact that President Obama really generated a lot of great things for our economy, and I've been really pleased about that. That said, I am concerned for the future and some of the policies that are being put in place right now that really aren't creating new jobs, that aren't taking into consideration new technologies and things that we should be looking at for the future generations.
I believe that we're still seeing a nice rebound in the economy, even though it is a bit slower than what a lot of people would like. And I think that we're actually going to see some challenges with the shift towards the service-based economy and the sharing economy that was just having people drive Lyft and Uber and doing TaskRabbit and the gigs, I guess is the term, gig economy. And I think that because of the rise of that and the rise of more e-commerce, we're going to have to adapt as a nation. And that means to adapt to more automation and find other ways for people to use their skills.
I think the fact that the economy has done pretty well since the election shows that it's more divorced from who's actually in office. But yeah, there are businesses who are optimistic because they think that having someone like Trump in power, and he really isn't in power, he's just a guy sitting there, who's in power are the puppets behind, he's a puppet for. But the biggest thing that's going to happen to our economy is he's going to get us into a war. Can I swear? I don't know, can I swear on this? He's batshit crazy, and he's going to get us into a war with Korea, North Korea, or China, or somebody, and that's not going to be good for the economy. So until he has one of his little Twitter meltdowns and causes, the leader of North Korea to send a missile our way, then look at the economy now.
My views on the economy change. I majored in economics in undergrad, so I have a little bit of expertise, so to speak, in this. And for me, I think we're in a transition as well, where the economics are shifting. A lot of jobs are being moved around. People that thought they would have a job for the next 20, 30 years are finding themselves without work. And we see that potential for other jobs, like, for example, truck drivers and other industries that are going to be automated. So I think the economics is changing, and it's hard to know how we're doing. I mean, growth as an economy is looking good, and that's a positive message, but are we creating the right jobs for the future? And that's where I maybe don't feel as optimistic.
As a business owner, the economy, I think, is doing pretty good. I think that if you're not doing well in this economy, you're not adapting. And as Americans, you need to adapt. It's what this country is built on. People came here with nothing, and they adapted. They adapted to traveling across country. They forged roadways, and they created things out of nothing. And so I think for America to think that that's changed, and that now we're in a position where we're all going to retire at 65 and live a fantasy life is over. So if you're not adapting, you're not making money. So you're probably unhappy. And that's on you. That's not on your public people. It's not their job to make sure that you go out and get an education.
I fear my wife, who has cancer, might get sick again. I fear about the health care behind that. I'm self-employed. I fear sometimes that what if the bottom drops out and there are no more clients and I still have a mortgage to pay? Those are realistic fears.
The divisiveness, I see a lot of it. I've been subjected to some of it by family members, friends, treating me like, because I believe in inclusiveness, I believe in being courteous, in being all this hateful rhetoric that's going on. It's spewed over into friendships in some degree, and it has been very upsetting and even strangers. When I was wearing for many months, I wore a safety pin to show you're safe with me after the election, and I had this older gentleman come up and just smack me with his cart at Costco, and I know that's why he did it, because he doesn't want people to be inclusive for one reason or another.
I think Bernadette said that very eloquently. I think civility is the thing that concerns me the most. There are commonalities for all people in this country who want to be productive citizens, but we can't have a civil conversation with one another. Again, as an educator, it's so important to me, that my students learn to be civil, to be courteous to one another, and there is a lack of civility in our discourse now. It's okay to disagree with people, but to do so in a way that still allows you to listen to another perspective. And I think the fact that we don't listen to each other, we talk over each other now, and it makes it harder for us to find common ground. And I just hope that that's not a rift from which we cannot recover.
Right now, I'm really fearful that our current administration is going to suspend our elections in 2020. I didn't think that was possible a few months ago, but their actions are showing it. So I really feel that the suspending elections, ripping apart our government, administrators cabinet members that are in charge of departments that they're ripping apart, I feel that is what's killing our country right now.
I'll tell you the flip side of that. What I'm hopeful about is that for the next 18 months, this energy we are seeing every day gets harnessed and focused in the right direction. And next November is a great, great election for people who share the values that so many of us do about the way we can move our community forward in a strong way. And I'm really hopeful that we are going to harness this energy, and next November is going to be a great day. I'll leave you to think what that means if we are not able to harness this energy. And so that's what I'm excited about, and that's why it's so great to see so many people out here on the 4th of July, patriotic people who love America and are fighting for a better country.
The thing I fear the most, and I think it's the most extreme kind of thing, is that we really just break down. Like I said earlier, where we're living in two different realities right now. I don't think it'll get there, but there was a civil war 150 some years ago. I don't think it'll get to that point, but the type of talk we have, the type of rhetoric, it starts becoming the point where people are really just kind of breaking down to really like what's the word? Civilization itself is kind of. I mean, that's the extreme, but just people sort of. Just how they treat each other, and it's just the society breaking down a little bit in terms of our government. That's the worst kind of scenario I see.
Probably a medical bankruptcy. Getting cancer or something, not having insurance is a really real possibility. So that and. You never know what the Russians are up to, so.
I'm afraid of what's happening to our press, our free speech and press. When you don't allow the press in, or you pick one over another, such as Fox News, and no one else can go in. When you bring in 2 Russian diplomats from Russia right into our White House, one of them a former spy, and they do it and to be done in front of the world and say, I can do this. There's something very scary and unnerving about what's going on in the White House. This is our White House. It's not his. This is the people's White House. I've been in it. I took my kids through it when they were little, and it was a real honor for me. And I think our rights, I think what's happening to the immigration situation, now that he's trying to enforce that ban again, that he won't give up on, there's a lot of concerns right now, but I think without freedom of, that's what, in the past, that's how dictators took over countries, by suppressing the press and free speech. That's how they started. And people can never look away from that and pretend like it doesn't exist. Having lived in Germany, I saw what happens when people look the other way, when other people are being loaded up on trucks, literally, because I talked to a few of the survivors. And we can never go down that route, ever.
So is that basically our safety too?
Safety too. Safety and our rights.
I'm a mom raising 2 young women, and I fear that they are growing up in a society that's really not that much different than the one I grew up in 20 years ago and the one my mother grew up in before. And by that I mean there are a lot of indignities and the way that women are being treated. There's a lot of misogyny, there's a lot of sexism, there's a huge gender gap that is still very, very apparent in our leadership roles, in Congress, and in the corporate world. And I worry for their future, honestly.
I fear that the common respect and equality given to everybody, the bar is now lowered, and that's going to keep falling down, and with it falling down, everybody's respect and equity is too, and that isn't fair and could create a world that I don't want to live in.
I think what I fear most is that the standard of what you're expected to behave in public forum and what's okay to say and what's not okay to say to people has changed, and the respect for people of different races or different genders or different sexualities from you, it's now okay to say mean things or unkind words, and it's not okay.
I completely agree with everything these three ladies said first, and I would say something else that concerns me is the systematic dismantling of environmental protections that have been built up over the last 40 years. And when my two sons, who are 17 and 20, ask me why I'm doing what I'm doing, I say because I hope to have grandchildren one day, and I would like them to breathe, and I would like them to have clean air, and I would like them to be able to visit wonderful national parks like you did in your childhood. So I am terrified about what's happening to the environment intentionally. Politicians are intentionally dismantling protections, and that's unfathomable to me. I can't imagine what motivates that.
The thing that I fear most is letting down the people I care about. So I want to make sure that every day that when I wake up, I'm doing my best throughout the whole day. And that means my husband, my family, my friends, and the people I work with in my nonprofit. I want to make sure that I make them proud to know me and proud that I'm working for them.
Big picture, war. I mean, and I don't mean like we get enmeshed in Syria or something like that. I mean that he starts us in a war with either China or North Korea or something like that. 2, Supreme Court. That's very real. Kennedy has said he might step down. Can you imagine if we get another Gorsuch? What world are we living in? It's like the Handmaid's Tale is becoming real. So that's, war and Supreme Court are my 2 biggest fears.
I fear that we're going to miss a window of opportunity to be able to take action in regards to the climate and be able to live in balance with the planet, and to do it in a way where if we take care of that now, it'll cost less, and I think it'll mean that we're living more in harmony with our environment. I think we have an opportunity, and I'm afraid we're going to miss that.
I fear the divisiveness that is being created in our country will turn to violence. And it's being instigated from the highest levels down, and people aren't paying attention. I kind of equate it to if you had 2 children and the children were reiterating some of the things that we've recently heard in Twitter, and if your child was saying those kind of things about another child, you would be aghast. Think about that. If your child was sending text messages to other children at that level, we would be appalled. But because it's an adult, we seem to think that it's okay. We give permission for this kind of climate.
I'm happy that I'm self-employed and making a living, and I'm happy my wife is feeling good right now, and we live in a great country, despite ups and downs, and hopefully we'll get through what I think is it's more than a speed bump, it's like a speed mountain. But maybe, the pendulum always swings, and eventually it'll swing the other way.
Oh, the happiest thing in my life, I would have to say, is my family and my friends, who are just so wonderful and supportive. And even when times are hard, I think family, and that's something else that we can all agree upon. I think that family is core, that having a family that's loving and supportive of one another can carry you through almost anything.
Yes, I'd agree. I'm actually a grandmother of 8. A lot of them are my step-grandkids, but they're my grandkids. I mean, I send them a check every birthday and presents every Christmas. So, yes, family is very important to me. In fact, I will be probably leaving Santa Clarita Valley to be closer to my grandchildren.
Right now, coming to events, working on, issues. I've been organizing a picnic. I'm in the West LA area. I'm organizing a picnic with the group Indivisible 37. We have that coming up in a couple of weeks. And now I know all my elected officials, so I'm much more politically aware than I was 6 months ago.
I'm happy I'm healthy. I'm happy I have a lot of friends. I'm happy that I'm helping with the Democratic Party be stronger. I'm looking forward to working on Brian Caforio's campaign for Congress. I'm also looking forward to working on Christy Smith's campaign for Assembly. I'm looking forward to a better life.
Well, it's almost the same thing. I'm happy to see so much excitement and energy. I'm happy to live in an amazing community with my fabulous wife, Lisa, where we can wake up every day and fight for a better community. It's a real amazing blessing to live in this country and this community where we have the opportunity to stand and march for freedom, march for liberty, and be able to push for those ideals that we believe in.
You know, things like this, you know, people coming out. I've never been out for one of these parades. People kind of getting motivated. I'm trying to talk to a younger generation, trying to raise my kids, like getting more involved in politics. Again, it's the don't vote every 4 years. Get involved, either groups locally, become involved, come out and talk to people on the other side, engage. I'm seeing people doing that, so it's just becoming a national conversation about like, oh, how did we get here? What happened? And so let's pick up the pieces and let's get back to, you know, doing what we need to do to kind of make the country great. You know, it's not going to be the great. It could be, but it's not necessarily the greatest nation in the world. But we're a great nation. You know, let's work with the others in the world and just kind of bring the country back to, you know, being having a civil conversation and building it back up, staying with it, and doing good things.
I think I am heartened to see all the young people that are politically engaged. I think that really could lead us to positive things.
Being an American, being here, free. I could go anywhere, I could say anything, being an American.
I would say that too, having lived in other countries, my grandchildren, and that's another reason I'm fighting today, because I want their future to be the future that I had. We were lucky to grow up here and to have a country we could be proud of, that the world was proud of, and looked at. On the Statue of Liberty, it says enlightenment of the world, and we need to remember that motto that is on the Statue of Liberty, and the fact that she welcomed everyone coming into this country. That if you work hard, you know, this is the place to come and make a decent life for you and your family. And I've had that, and I want my grandchildren to have the same thing that I had.
The mobilization of new activists, including me, at 51 years old, I'm more involved than I have ever been in my entire life. And the energy and the ideas and the idealism of new activists who are getting involved not only in national issues, but grassroots, local, community issues. And it's not, you know, just social media slacktivism. It's real boots on the ground, get a clipboard, get out there and talk to people, activism, and I've never seen that in my lifetime, and it's energizing, and it gives me hope. It does.
I think what I'm most happiest about is that while some people are moving backward, it's encouraging so many other people to move forward and to band together.
I think while bad stuff is happening around us, it's nice to know that other people, not only us, recognize it and are sharing their beliefs and having voices of their own.
I'm really excited about the fact that the majority of Americans voted for our first woman for president. I'm so excited that I got to see that in my lifetime, and I just pray that I'll still be alive to see when we actually inaugurate our first woman president.
I am happiest about meeting all of the awesome people I get to meet on this campaign because every time you meet someone, you learn new stories about them, about the world around you, and it really ticks all the boxes for me as a scientist. I'm infinitely curious, and so meeting people is the best thing that in my life right now.
The silver lining in this is how much awareness and activity it's generating, but all these people have to actually vote. It's not enough to come out to a parade. It's not enough to like something on Facebook. Get your butt out there and actually vote. I don't care if your favorite candidate isn't out there. If it's not Bernie Sanders, you'll never vote for anyone again. If it's not, Barack Obama 2.0, you have to vote. And the idea that, Hillary was a flawed candidate. Many people are flawed candidates, but the idea that she was equally bad as Trump is lunacy. And the number of people who stayed home because they were fed that by the Jill Steins of the world and all the third-party candidates, are they better off now? Because, they got their righteous thing. I didn't vote for Hillary. She's awful. Well, look where we are now. Congratulations. So just get your butt out there and vote. Nothing else. You don't have to do any other thing. Just vote.
I'm happiest to be here, to be able to enjoy a parade, to be able to be part of a community that is welcoming and values the environment, and I'm able to go out and ride my horses, and I plan on doing that later today.
I'm happiest that I can actually stand here and have an opinion.